The Zephyrian delegation strutted into the council chamber with the arrogance of a species that had never known defeat. Their crystalline exoskeletons gleamed under the artificial lights, and the shimmer of their personal energy shields created an aurora-like effect around each of the 7-foot-tall beings. Ambassador Kethvar, the lead Zephyrian, activated the chamber's holographic display with a gesture of his 4-fingered hand. The projection showed a massive fleet of sleek, angular vessels surrounding a small blue-green planet. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council. Kethavar's voice resonated through his translation device, carrying undertones of barely concealed smugness. We present to you the primitive world of Earth and its inhabitants, humans. The assembled representatives from dozens of species leaned forward in their various forms of seating arrangements. The Zephyrians had been boasting about their latest conquest for months, claiming to have discovered a species so backward that they still used projectile weapons. These creatures, Kethvar continued, his mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among his kind, attempted to resist our glorious expansion with metal projectiles. Metal. Can you imagine such primitive thinking? He gestured again, and the hologram shifted to show footage of human soldiers firing rifles at Zephyrian troops. The bullets struck the aliens' energy shields and simply disintegrated into sparkling particles. Our quantum resonance shields, Kethvar proclaimed, are impenetrable to any form of kinetic attack. These humans learned this the hard way when they threw everything they had at us. Their tanks, their missiles, their crude bullets. Nothing could penetrate our defenses. Murmurs of appreciation rippled through the chamber. The Zephyrian shield technology was indeed legendary. For 3 centuries, it had made them virtually unstoppable in their conquest of 12 star systems. The humans surrendered within 72 of their planetary rotations, Kethvar announced triumphantly. However, we have brought one of their specimens for demonstration purposes. Consider it educational entertainment. The chamber's entrance iris dilated, and 2 Zephyrian guards escorted a figure into the room. The human was unremarkable by galactic standards. Average height bipedal with the typical mammalian features. What caught everyone's attention was the ancient-looking projectile weapon she carried. This is Sarah Chen, Kethvar announced, a former military specialist from their armed forces. She has volunteered to demonstrate the futility of human weaponry against superior Zephyrian technology. Sarah stood calmly in the center of the chamber, her weathered hands steady as she held what appeared to be a modified rifle. Her gray hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her dark eyes surveyed the assembled aliens with the calculating gaze of a veteran soldier. The demonstration is simple, Kethvar continued. The human will fire her primitive weapon at me. My shield will absorb the kinetic energy and convert it to harmless light. Then we shall discuss the terms of human integration into the Zephyrian Empire. Sarah cleared her throat. Before we begin, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics, I'd like to ask you something about these shields of yours. Kethavar's compound eyes glittered with amusement. Certainly, primitive one. What could you possibly wish to know about technology beyond your comprehension? Your shields convert kinetic energy to light, Sarah said matter-of-factly. But what happens when the projectile isn't kinetic? A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. Several council members began consulting their translation devices as if they hadn't heard correctly. Impossible, Kethvar scoffed. All projectiles are kinetic. They possess mass and velocity. This is basic physics even by your species' limited understanding. Sarah smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both gentle and terrifying. You're absolutely right about basic physics, but you're making one crucial assumption. She raised her rifle and chambered around with a distinctive click that echoed through the silent chamber. You assume that just because something looks like a bullet, it behaves like a bullet. Before anyone could react, Sarah squeezed the trigger. The report of the rifle was sharp and decisive in the enclosed space. What emerged from the barrel wasn't a traditional projectile. Instead, a small, sleek object streaked through the air, but halfway to its target, tiny thrusters ignited along its surface. The bullet suddenly decelerated, its momentum dropping to nearly 0 just before impact. Kethvar's shield, programmed to absorb kinetic energy, found nothing to absorb. The micro-guided projectile, now moving at the speed of a gentle breeze, passed through the energy barrier as if it were morning mist. The Zephyrian ambassador looked down in shock at the small hole that had appeared in his exoskeleton just below his primary heart. Green ichor began to seep from the wound. Kinetic energy requires motion, Sarah explained conversationally as Kethvar collapsed. Remove the motion at the moment of impact, and your shields become nothing more than pretty lights. Chaos erupted. In the chamber, the remaining Zephyrian guards raised their weapons, but Sarah was already moving. Her rifle barked again and again, each shot firing another micro-guided projectile that decelerated just before impact, slipping through shields that had been considered impenetrable for 3 centuries. Within seconds, all 7 Zephyrians lay, motionless on the chamber floor. Sarah lowered her weapon and turned to address the stunned council. Humanity would like to renegotiate the terms of our surrender, she said calmly. It seems there's been a misunderstanding about our technological capabilities. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Finally, Counselor Vexthala of the Andromedan Collective spoke up, her tentacles quivering with what might have been awe or terror. How is this possible? The reports indicated that humans were technologically inferior. Sarah shrugged. We are in most ways. Our computers are slower, our ships are clunkier, our weapons are primitive. But you know what we're really, really good at? She gestured toward the fallen Zephyrians. Problem solving. You see, when someone tells a human that something is impossible to defeat, we don't surrender. We sit in our workshops and laboratories and ask ourselves one simple question. Yeah, but what if we tried this? She held up her rifle, and the assembled aliens could now see the intricate modifications, the micro-guidance systems, the variable propulsion chambers, the adaptive targeting matrix. The Zephyrians were so proud of their invincible shields that they forgot the most important rule of warfare. There's no such thing as an unsolvable problem. There are only problems that haven't been solved yet. Sarah slung her rifle over her shoulder with practiced ease. Now then, she continued, I believe Earth has some territorial disputes to settle with the Zephyrian Empire. And after that, humanity would very much like to discuss joining this council, as equals, not as subjects. The silence that followed was broken only by the soft hum of the chamber's life support systems. In the space of 5 minutes, the entire galactic balance of power had shifted. Humanity had just announced its arrival on the interstellar stage, not with superior technology or overwhelming force, but with the one thing that had always defined their species, the absolute refusal to accept that any problem was truly impossible to solve. The age of human expansion was about to begin.